Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is Sandra Walters. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Today, it is a nice sunny day. It is now daytime and it is the weekend. I am getting it done. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint with you. Maybe not there, but okay. So again, my name is Sandra Walters, and this is the Our Inspiring Stories Publishing Company. And I am going to be talking to you today about different types of sentences. And I'm simply reviewing you so that you have a variety of sentences. You don't want to write a book and have the same type of sentences. So again, our agenda, well, not again, our agenda today is, and I think I've already said welcome, welcome back. Good news. Anybody have good news? I'm thinking about me. Do I have any good news? I'm gonna have to think about that. So anyways, well, the good news is I'm getting these videos done and it's morning. So it'll be interesting to see how different I am in the morning than at night when I'm drinking tea so that I can stay awake, because typically I go to bed about 8. So when I was doing those videos, it was not the prime time for me. So anyways, I'm also going to be giving you some sentence starters that will help you so that you don't have predictable sentences, and that meaning they sound exactly the same, they start the same. So that will give you some assistance and you don't have to think so hard. It'll help you create new sentences without having to think them up. They'll just be right there for you. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. What are the 4 different types of sentences? And I'm going to give you a little time so you can think about it. There are 4 different types of sentences. What are they? You probably haven't thought about this in a long time, depending on when you took your last English class. And even depending on your last English class, I don't know if they taught you basic sentences. This is something that you learn in middle school. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. So there are 4 different types of sentences, and that's your basic sentence. And then you have compound sentences, and that's a sentence where it has 2 sentences joined together with a comma and a conjunction. Then you have the complex sentence, and that's where it has an independent clause. It can be at the front or it can be at the back. And then it has a complete sentence. So you have what's called an independent, a dependent clause. So a dependent clause is kind of like a fragment. So if it were alone, it wouldn't be able to stand alone, but it can stand in front of the sentence. And then, so you have your dependent clause, and then you have your complete sentence. Or you could have your complete sentence, and then you can have a dependent clause, and it just seems like extra information. Also, there is a compound complex. So that's basically you take a compound sentence and then you take a complex sentence and you put those together. And so I know that I have some visual learners out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I am going to go to my Google Classroom and pull up that sheet for you. All right. There it is. Okay, so here are the different sentence structures. And we're not going to practice writing sentences. Like when you see this, you're probably thinking, okay, she's going to have me writing practice sentences, unless you just need to do that. So if you notice here, simple sentence, easy. You got one subject, and then you've got your verb, which in the verb in the rest of the sentence is called the predicate. So real basic. typically short, but not always. But that is just a simple sentence, okay? Now, what you have here is interesting, they jumped all the way to complex. Okay, well, let's do it here since they're labeled here. So here what you've got is a subject and a verb, and it's a very simple sentence. It's 2 words. This is a simple sentence. So it has 1 subject, 1 verb, simple sentence. Okay, it can have 2 subjects and a verb. It's still a simple sentence. Okay, as long as it has a subject and a predicate, then, or it could be a compound subject, but if it has has a subject and a predicate, it is in just one of those, then it is going to be a simple sentence. Okay. It can be a compound subject though, so it could also be a compound verb, but still it would be considered 1 subject. It would just be a compound subject and then a compound verb. Okay, so anyways, that's your simple sentence. Those, you should have those down. Now this is what I have noticed. I noticed this when I read other books. And I also noticed this with students. With compound sentences, students know how to write them, but they don't typically know where to put the comma or to put the semicolon, which is very simple. So here you've got this compound sentence, and compound sentence means 2. So the first part of the sentence is Lily traveled to Europe last summer. That's sentence number 1, okay? So in order to connect that with the second sentence, you're going to either use a comma and a conjunction or a semicolon. So they use the semicolon. Dan found a job and stayed in his hometown. Okay. All right, let's read that together, because 2, when you're doing a compound sentence, they're supposed to like relate. So Lily traveled to Europe last year. Dan found a job and stayed in his hometown. Okay, so it's talking about 2 different people, but it's talking about the same thing. So it's pretty much the same subject. So they use the semicolon to combine those 2 sentences, compound sentence. All right. Okay. Now that makes more sense. So this one, they actually used a conjunction with these 2 sentences, and I personally think it makes more sense with the conjunction but, because it says Lily traveled to Europe last summer, but Dan found a job and stayed in his hometown. That makes more sense. So that's one of the things you have to think about too when you're using conjunctions, that you use the right conjunction. And if you look over here to your right, these are a lot of the conjunctions, and in English teachers, we call those fanboys. So you can use for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so to combine sentences. You have to have that comma there, okay? Because otherwise it would be considered incorrect. Okay. Also, they decided to use, on this next one, they decided to use a transition word. And take into mind that but and however, they mean the same thing. So Lily traveled to Europe last summer. However, Dan found a job and stayed in his hometown. So you can use those type of words. Like if you're using but too much, then I would most definitely use however, because they mean the same thing, okay? All right, so compound sentences, Two sentences joined together by a comma and a conjunction or a semicolon. If it does not have, and because this one is a transition type word, you have to have a semicolon and a comma. Okay? All right. To keep it easy though, you might just simply want to do a comma and conjunction or a semicolon. It's up to you. So let's go to complex sentences. All right, complex sentences. If you look at this example, when he finishes university, that's your dependent clause, comma. And here is your complete sentence. Tom hopes to move to British Columbia. So that's your independent clause. So that is your complex sentence. You have a dependent clause in the front, and then you have an independent clause in the back, which is a complete sentence. So make sure you put that comma there, or it is incorrect. All right. Now what you got is the independent clause, which is the sentence in the front, and then you have the dependent clause in the back. When the dependent clause is in the back, no comma. All right, let's read it. Tim hopes to move to British Columbia when he finishes university. So, because of where it is located, determines whether you have the comma or not. So if this were in the front, it would look like this, but with it being in the back, it does not look like that, okay? All right. Okay, this is another one. I read the story would be a complete sentence, okay? I read the story. And then you're just adding extra information that you wrote. So that is a dependent clause, just a little extra information. But in this instance, you don't need a comma. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move down to compound complex. Okay, so here, if you will notice, this is pretty much the complex here in the front because you got a dependent clause in a sentence, and that's a complex sentence. And then here, you've got a sentence that you're adding to it. So that makes it compound complex because it's two sentences and then you got the complex part, okay? All right, so let's see how that works. Let's read until I finish my exams, comma, and that's your dependent clause. I have to study every night. That's sentence number 1, okay? Otherwise, I would definitely join you for the concert. So that's sentence number 2. So compound. I guess in this instance, you might think complex, compound, because it seems like the complex is in the front and not in the back. All right, so let's look at another one. You've got, again, another compound complex. David was confused. So this is the independent part. David was confused about the assignment that was due on Tuesday. That's extra information. So it's like David was confused about the assignment. That's your simple sentence. And then you add a little more and it makes it complex. That was due on Tuesday. So he asked his teacher for help. And so that's the second part of the compound sentence. So you got like the complex here in the middle, and then you got sentence 1 and sentence 2. That's what makes it compound. The biggest thing about compound and complex, you need to know where those commas go. And so I am going to do a lesson on commas so that you get a refresher of where you're supposed to put commas. Also, I'm going to do one on quotation marks because some of you will be using dialogue in your book so that you know where the dialogue goes. So I hope that that was helpful. This handout is a part of your Google Classroom if you are a gold client, so you can look at this information further if you need to. So let's go back to the presentation. There are 4 different types of sentences. The first one is basic. You have a subject and a predicate. You just have one subject and one predicate. And then a compound sentence, 2 sentences put together, joined by a comma and a conjunction or a semicolon. Or you could either use a transition word like however. Also, a complex sentence. A complex sentence, typically my pattern of my complex sentence is I have a dependent clause in the front, and that means kind of a fragment in the front, and then a sentence in the back. So that's how I typically do my complex sentences. Now, a compound complex sentence, that is a complex sentence joined with 2 sentences, okay? And since they're being joined, you're gonna have to use a comma and a conjunction for it to be correct. Also, you gotta make sure you got that comma after that dependent clause, okay? All right, well, I hope that that was helpful. Let me know if you got any questions about, oh, we're not done. We got to do the sentence starters. Okay, so let's go to the sentence starters. Okay. I'm going to go to my material, not that one. Okay. So also you got sentence starters. And did I pick the wrong one? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. There they are. All right, so you have it says main ideas, sentence starters, but you can use them with other things other than just the main idea. So you got different things like it's amazing to think about. So that will just help you create a different type of sentence. I would avoid the sentence starters that start with let me explain or let me tell you about. No, that's not how you write a narrative, okay? You just going to use the ones that best fits what you're doing. It's incredible that, you know, you might use something like that. It's hard to believe. So it just depends on which starter sentence best fits what you're writing, okay? So there's just a few little sentence starters. For those of you who are just looking at this on the video, you might want to pause this because you don't get the handouts like the ones with the gold package. But anyways, there you go. You can just stop it there and then use the sentences as need be. I hope you find this helpful. I know I found it helpful because when I was having a brain freeze or a brain fart, then I could just go here and use some of those sentence starters so that I'm not starting my sentences exactly the same way. All right. Well, that looks like that is going to end my time today about sentences. I hope that I refreshed your memory about sentences. But like I said before, if you have any questions, please send me a message on my website. Also, if there is something that I have not covered, make sure you shoot me a message so that I can create a video that addresses that situation. I hope you have a great day. That is it. So I am going to end here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.